I wanted to share with you some ways you can strengthen your hips for more stability in your yoga practice. So I've just got a couple of things to try and a few things that you can maybe bring into your existing practice to help. You will need a block or something firm to stand on. It doesn't need to be very tall, but maybe if you've got like a wide book, wide hardback book, that can work quite well if you don't have a yoga block. So we're going to start with that. We're going to start standing, so you can grab your support and we'll bring it just into the centre of the mat. We're going to start by placing our right foot onto that support. And it will be a bit spongy if you're not using your book, but that's fine. It's good for balance training as well. So we'll press this right foot into the mat, and instead of allowing our left leg to drop and our hips being a little bit wonky, you're going to use this leg, press into your right foot. You're going to use it to lift your left hip to be equal. So you can really feel the right glute working, the outer hip working, and you just hold this for as long as you can before you need a little break. So it's okay, you know, if the hips are feeling tired or you know you can't hold it for long, you just drop the foot back and then you try again. Even if it's just for a second or two, you lift and then you can drop back. So you just play about with that as a way to strengthen the hips in your practice. If you find your arms are a little bit causing you to wobble because they're a bit floppy, then hands on the hips is a really good way to practice. And also with the hands on the hips, you can feel what's happening in the hips. And you can feel when the hips are level, and you can feel when they're not level. Okay, so let's do the other side. Stepping onto the block with the left foot. So to start with, your left hip is higher, your right hip is dropping. Yeah, and so if you think about learning to do this just on its own, you know, when we come to practice something like tree pose or other balances, rather than having this kind of lopsidedness in the hips, we can really learn to use this outer hip on the standing leg, the glute on the standing leg, and bring that hip equal. So if we were to come into tree pose now, we wouldn't be slightly dropping or twisted in the hips even, you know, as we sometimes do. This stability that you can get from strengthening here can really help it in your other balances like tree pose and things like standing big toe pose, those kind of things. So you can just drop again. Whenever you need, you just rest. You just do it a few times each side. You want to feel like you're almost hugging your hips in towards each other. Maybe one leg has a little more strength than the other. Very normal for us not to be that equal. And you'll really feel this as well. It's not a big movement, but it has a big difference in the body. And we'll release. Good. Okay. So the next one I want to show you is for you to lie on your side. So we'll lie on the right side first, and that way you can see me as well. So you support your head with your hand, and you just bring yourself into a balanced position. So I'm not looking for perfect alignment in this necessarily, but the legs will be together. Okay. So do you feel that you can slightly descend your tailbone to your heels? Your pubic bone very gently lifts there just for a little bit of core stability, and then we lift the left leg up and we come back down. So this is a good way to fire up the hips, get them working, get them engaging. So when we come to standing postures, you know, we have that strength not just from the legs but also up into the hips. So let's do a few more on this side. You really feel this in the outer hip if you do have a weakness there or anything like that. Good. And then we'll change sides. So you can just roll over. I'll change so my back isn't to you. And then we can come down. So again, just looking for a balanced position. Doesn't have to be perfect alignment. We're not looking for a completely straight line here, but we do want to descend the tailbone, lift the pubic bone slightly. And you have your right hand on the floor for support, okay? and then you lift the right leg up and down. Try not to be too heavy in the right hand, so it's not like we're really gripping or anything. So fingertips is a good way to make sure we're not placing too much pressure into the right hand. And we really want to try and keep it coming from the hip. We don't want to move it into other parts of the body. We want to build the strength in the hip. So if we move it into other parts, we tend to then still ignore that weak spot and it remains weak. So really concentrating around the hip here as you do this. And of course, as you go, if you find that your hips are feeling more strength, if you practice this regularly, feel free to use things like resistance bands here. So you can have them around the ankles, and by pulling the resistance bands apart, you're creating more resistance, which makes the muscles work harder. So that's one way you can develop this. So we'll stop there. Just slowly bring yourself back up. Now just sit in a cross-legged position, so feeling around the hips now as you have done a few nice strengtheners there. Nothing complicated, things that you can bring into your existing practice. Before you do your standing postures, maybe you do that practice on the block, making sure the hips are level, stabilising around that. Maybe when you're doing some reclined leg stretches or anything like that, where you're already lying down, maybe you bring in that hip strengthener as well. So a few ways for you to hopefully support your practice, support your body, and ultimately feel a little bit more balanced and healthy. Thank you for joining me. I hope you found this helpful, and please leave your comments below.